What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Winnipeg Jets versus the St. Louis Blues in Game 1, and some of the stuff that I noticed, some of the trends that I noticed through Game 1. Obviously, the Jets coming away with a big come from behind 5-3 win. Kyle Connor scoring the game winner, Al Iafallo tying it up, they're in the third. But, in past years, maybe the Jets wouldn't have done, something like this. Maybe the Jets would have folded. Maybe the Jets would have lost Game 1. They didn't do that this time, down 3-2 through 2 periods. They came all the way back, tied that game up, and then scored the winner late. And, only allowing 2 shots in the third. I'll talk about that a lot more as this video goes on. But this was pure domination in the back half of the game by the Jets. After that 3-2 goal went in, they locked in, they found their game, and they were able to, chip away at the Blues, not allowing them, literally anything. The Blues didn't have a shot on goal for 25 minutes through that game. They only had 2 shots in the third, as I said before. Found their game that they've been playing all year. They came back and they won that game 5-3 with the, game winner and the empty netter. It was pretty impressive. Would, have Jets teams over the past few years have done that? I don't think so. But the one thing that I really liked in this game is that the Jets stars were their stars. Mark Scheifele early on tying this game up as, Blues were up 1-0 pretty early on in the first period. Would have been very easy to panic and start doing, some crazy stuff, looking for offense, losing assignments. But they didn't panic. They scored. Mark Scheifele made it 1-1. And then who's scoring that game winner there? That's Kyle Connor, right? Scheifele to Connor, bang. Top line played really good in this one. Al Iafallo obviously had that tying goal to make it 3-2. Real nice in tight goal. How good has he been on that first line? The CSI line kind of looking nice these days with Gabe Vilardi approaching return, maybe sort of soon. He's in non-contact jersey. That line looked really good throughout that whole game. I don't know if Vilardi goes back up to that top line when he comes back, but we'll talk about that, further down the road. But point being, the Jets top line showed up, and they were a big reason for this win. Connor Hellebuyck, I thought, played pretty well, despite, 3 goals going in. I know there's this huge narrative going back to the last few years that Connor Hellebuyck is not a playoff goaltender. I don't really buy into that. I don't think you should either. The goals that went in that first period were pretty nice. And that Jordan Kyrou shot, oh my god, in the third period, what a goal. Pick the corner there. Wouldn't worry about that too much, guys, going through here. We'll see, how he performs in the games going forward. But, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Helly came up big, made some big stops. That one Jordan Kyrou breakaway really felt like the turning point in this one. Past years, again, does he make that save? I don't know, right? But Hellebuyck came up tall, looked really good in this one. Didn't have to do a whole lot in the third, except watch his team make a big comeback there, and it was pretty cool to watch. So I expect Connor Hellebuyck to be, at his best now. Everybody seems to have settled in, and it was pretty cool to see. Jets up 1-0 in the series. One of the big storylines coming into this was, great regular season by the Jets, but can they do it in the playoffs? Last couple of seasons, been first round exits, has not been pretty in the first round for Winnipeg. And, in the first maybe 10-20 minutes of that game, kind of seemed like, hey, maybe that narrative is still true. But as the game went on, Jets flipped the script, and I think that was the most important thing to do in Game 1. Going down by a goal there, coming back, I think that was a huge lift, showing themselves and showing, everybody else out there that, hey, we're not the same Jets. We're not folding like we would in years past. We, just won that game 5-3, came back from down 1 in the third. That was really impressive, and I'm happy that that happened because I think that this was arguably the biggest hurdle that they needed to get through early on here in the playoffs as, to prove to themselves that, hey, we're a different team now. We're not the team of old. This is the new age Winnipeg Jets, and, hey, we're legit contenders here. Part of that, too, in past years was mental toughness, right? If the Jets went down 1, they kind of started spinning out a little bit. As soon as they started losing, maybe they started doing some stupid stuff, and they kind of flipped it onto the Blues. Ever since the first round matchup has been confirmed between the Jets and the Blues, leading up to it, all that I've been hearing is how this team is resilient. This Blues team, they won 12 in a row. Lost to the Jets, in game 13, by the way. but how, 6 years ago they did the same thing, crawled out of the basement, and then went on this big run to win a Stanley Cup. But this isn't the Blues team of 6 years ago. This is not that same team. The Blues had momentum, they were up 3-2, but really ever since it was 3-2, the Jets kind of controlled that game. Took them a little while to tie it up, but whole second half of the game the Jets owned. I can't even think of a time that the Blues, had controlled possession in the Jets' end and, had more than a shot attempt on goal. I can't remember it. And it's because the Jets played really good structurally, in the back half of the game there, and they were able to control the play, keep everything in the O-zone, and they wore the Blues down, tied it up about midway through the third, and then late in the game, Kyle Connor, bang, scores, right? 4-3, that was your winner. Adam Lowry finished it off with the empty netter, and that was it. We said, see you later. But at the end of that game, the Blues, it showed that they were frustrated. They started, starting scrums, and it wasn't just, some of their fourth liners and everything. It was Braden Shen. It was Jake Neighbors. It was guys like that, big pieces to this Blues team that were visibly frustrated and trying to cause stuff after the game. And it just reminded me a lot of these Jets teams that we've seen in the past few years. Team that, got grinded down and then, got frustrated at the end of the game. So, we're talking about the Jets and their mental toughness in the playoffs. I think it's time that we flip the script here and we take a look at St. Louis, because I think they're in a load of trouble here coming into Monday night at home. The whiteout again. If they go down 2-0 and you're facing Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets, good luck, because, hey, you're going to need it. Not that the Jets really needed Gabe Vilardi back, in Game 1. Would be really nice to have him going forward here, but he is now in a non-contact jersey, like I said before. Still remains day-to-day. We'll see how long he does remain out. I wouldn't imagine we see Gabe until around, Game 4, Game 5, probably at the earliest. But one thing that is really nice with this schedule is that there's a couple day breaks in between a few of their games coming up here. So a little bit more time for Gabe to ice up, get back. Same with Nikolai Ehlers. I think he's a little bit longer out. I don't think we'll see him until, round 2. And even at that, I think that sounds a little hopeful right now. So I hope that, with these extra days off, these guys can get proper healing in. Everybody can take a break. Everybody can, kind of rest up. Because the Jets have some injuries going on right now. And it would be really nice to have a full team heading into round 2 if the Jets are to make it there. But what about Game 1? This is not last year's Jets, I promise you that. Very impressive showing by the team. But what did you think? Let me know down below in the comments what you thought about Game 1. We're heading into Game 2 here. These are not last year's Jets. It's been a lot of fun just through one game already. I'm going to be in attendance for Game 2. I'll have some content up for that tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching as always. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. See you later, guys. Go Jets, go. Bye-bye.